past is more than what we leave behind. The people lay these stones as a pathway to the heavens. Come, Ooooowwweeeee, and assume the world's throne. When I was young, I thought that money was the most important thing in life. Now that I am old, I know that it is. after perfection.
in die Schlacht.
There is Geo. No man is foolish enough to desire war over peace. For in peace, sons bury fathers, but in war, fathers bury sons.
Civ5 is the best forever. Civ7 is trash.
So I kind of lied at the beginning of the video on the tower.
I like the gameplay. I didn't play Mankind. I like the gameplay. I don't like that it's kind of dumbed down. I don't like that it's kind of dumbed down version of Civ 6 or all the Civ games. The builders are gone. They just combined a bunch of actions. But I don't think it's trash. I just don't think it's what I was expecting out of Civ. And I haven't played Mankind, but
In ages is idiot.
Change Civilizations in Ages is idiot. Change Civilizations in Ages. Oh, I get what you're saying. Yes, I don't like that. It feels like I'm starting over. Yes, I agree with that 100%. I don't. So on top of it crashing, it's crashed like 7 times tonight since I've been playing. I really don't like having to pick a brand new civilization and losing all access to everything that I just had. It feels like I'm starting brand new every age, and that kind of makes me feel like I don't know what they're trying to do. But yeah, I don't like that. I would understand if I kept everything from my old age, picked a new. I kept everything from my old civilization, picked a new civilization, and then built on top of that, and had access to everything that I had picked. But it's not. You restart every age, so I don't like that. There's kind of like different augments or different things you can pick where it's kind of like not restarting if you're doing an army or whatever, but then you put yourself into a dark age. So yeah, I'm not liking that. I'd like it if it's stacked, not fucking restarting all over. Why cancel? What the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean? Yeah, you heard I was talking. Hold on. Why you got one in your hand? What happened to the
Ages is the
Bracken,
biggest
I guess?
problem in the new Civ. Aesthetics too.
Skill
Yeah, Ages.
from my ancestors.
It almost feels like they're trying to balance it for multiplayer, if that makes sense. So if I started a multiplayer game in Civ 6, if I started a multiplayer game in Civ 6 and dominated in the beginning, then that means I could pretty much dominate the whole game. But it feels like because you restart almost in Civ 7, other people have a chance in multiplayer to try. It like kind of evens the playing field. It kind of feels like balancing for multiplayer to me, even when I'm not playing multiplayer. And that kind of doesn't make sense because I don't think Civ has ever had a ranked mode.
Brew. See this trash map, haha.
And sunlight reflects in the back surface, and then sunlight goes through in the wall. Now, I'm going to keep the laser horizontal and move it up the sphere. So let's call the distance from the central axis.
I think next game I play, I'm gonna turn off whatever tiles they gave me, because I think I have, because I bought the deluxe edition, the most expensive one. Yes, call me a fool. I don't care. I wanted to play it early. I don't know what the tiles are actually supposed to look like. These are like, I guess these are premium tiles. Or a fog of war, whatever.
As the laser moves up, it
Rolling
goes
on the
down.
floor laughing.
Expect the whole beam inside the sphere bends down. That's because as the light enters the sphere, it slows down.
Yeah. Me too, pal. Me too. You know, I just got into Civ in Civ 6 a couple years ago. And it was a pretty good game, but I guess because I got into it late, and it is a pre-order, so I can't be mad at it that it's crashing 7 times a fucking day. While I'm trying to play, it crashes at least once an hour, but I pre-ordered it, so that's my fault. And it's not even actually out yet, so I'm probably playing like some pre-patch or something.
Rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing.
The clearest explanation I know of for how light is slowed down in a medium comes from Grant over at 3 Blue 1 Brown.
Yeah, I thought it would give me more too, but I just got fucking, what, one new character? One new leader? Tekuma something?
Each charge has a little mass on the spring. The changing electromagnetic fields cause it to vibrate at the same frequency as the
Make
light.
CIV5 lives.
But now you have
CIV
wavelengths
seven
that
is
is
cash
accelerating charges.
buy
So
lives.
they too must create their own electromagnetic waves.
Yeah, after playing Civ 6, I didn't think that's what it would be, but I don't know. I'm hoping. I don't know what I'm hoping for Civ 7. I should be on Marvel Rivals, to be honest.
Each layer of the material adds another phase shift. So the net effect of all this is the wavelength of the radiation decreases in the medium. And since the frequency stays the same, the shorter wavelength decreases the speed of light through the material.
But yeah, I don't know what I'm hoping for the game to be on.
Will crash again, bro.
Yep, it's gonna crash again, and then I'm gonna restart it. I'm probably gonna. What am I doing? So I guess I'm just playing to try and get a grasp of the mechanics, so that when I play online, because I want to try and have like some kind of lobbies and custom lobbies with viewers and stuff, and my friends, and try and do ranked lobbies. Because I feel like if Civ had some kind of rank, I know it has like a unofficial ranked scene that I don't know too much about, but if it had an actual ranked mode where I could go in the menu and pick ranked and have some kind of actual leaderboard, I think that would be pretty cool. But then cheaters are going to be a problem. But cheaters are a problem in every game these days. I just kind of wish Civ had a ranked, but it's not a ranked game. I'm a ranked player. But I do like the concept of Civ. But I don't know how I'm liking this Civ.
dead center.
But yeah, if it crashes again, I'll probably restart it. But I don't know how many more crashes I can take. This game, none of my other games crash like this at all. I don't think any of my games actually crash.
This spot on the table. As I move the incident beam
Maybe
up,
I'll play Marvel Rivals until my friend downloads it, or it drops.
right there, where it stops coming closer.
The gameplay is addicting though. It is just Civ. It's just Civ loops.
Do you know about Medicare Part C plans, also called Medicare Advantage? If you're
Grim, chill out, bro. Damn, going on that rant made me forget what my whole game plan was. I guess I'm overestimating or over exaggerating too. The crashing is more like 2 hours, not like 1 hour. It crashes every 2 hours. But it can also crash as soon as I start a game, so I don't know. I thought you were gonna. That's probably mine.
Well, this is mine.
Then where's my card?
Benefits. Enrollment in the Medicare Part
I remember what I was doing.
You are eligible. You could be eligible.
No soul baby. Sad woozy face, loudly crying face.
Now, or they may have previously not been available.
Does the game have a soul?
With just one call, you can get your questions answered. Find out if you are
I think the identity of what Civ is, and because I'm basically a noob to Civ type games. I didn't play Mankind. I only got into Civ at Civ 7. I mean Civ 6. Civ 6 was more complex. You had more to worry about. Civ 7 feels like Civ 6 or Civ with training wheels. So maybe they're trying to make it easier for people to get into. Yeah, but yeah, it kind of feels like Civ 6 or Civ with training wheels. I think my friends will get into it a lot, but I think I was expecting more in-depth systems. And it seems like they simplified everything.
And this is really important. It means that over a range of impact parameters, a range of heights of the laser,
And
To my friends,
reflected beam comes out at essentially the same angle, which means the light is becoming concentrated at that angle. And concentration
in some ways, it's good that they simplified everything because, I mean, it feels like I'm speed running Civ. That's what it kind of feels like, to be honest. And then when an age starts, I get reset, and then I have to speed run Civ again. That's what it feels like. So I guess if you like a faster Civ experience, that's good because there's less to manage. It's easier to manage. And whatever you're trying to focus on, whether that be war, technology, whatever you're trying to focus on, it's easier to focus on that. But if you like complex systems and you like the Civ 6, you like the Civ style where you have to go and manage everything to be victorious, then that's not here.
Here, the angle of incidence is
This could almost be a mobile game, to be honest. Raid, Shadow Legends, or whatever that fucking sponsorship is a bunch of YouTubers have. Thank you, Teska. Thank you, Teska. But Yeah, I think
Just
to be honest, this could be a freaking mobile game. Yeah, it feels like Raid Shadow Legends or what's the other one? Kingdom Empires or the other building one. It's like simplified that much, which is makes sense why it's on PS4 as well.
Depends on the difference between the frequency of light and the natural frequency of the charge. The closer the two frequencies are, the
I want to take.
the resulting vibration.
I think I want to take the thing, but I don't know if I'm strong enough.
The closer your pushing frequency is to the natural
I've been
frequency of the
focusing
speed,
on
the
getting
higher
my
they'll go.
science
This
down.
means that higher frequency light, like blue light,
For
will
standard, turns end at
because
130,
produce higher amplitude
131, 130.
which creates a bigger phase.
So I have enough time to take her over if I need. Actually, I think I'm pretty far ahead.
Slower and more than lower frequency light. Alright. Change lasers. So when I repeated these,
I already have my future tech.
it reframed it more than red light, and therefore the green dot turned around sooner than the red dot. Well, there's the minimum reflection for green.
Don't really care about fighting. Oh, ho, come. I kind of want that.
Maximum scattering
Just for the iconic name.
if the speed of water would
57.
occur at around 41 degrees below the horizontal.
Why can't I take you?
Similarly, for blue light, the maximum scattering angle approaches 40 degrees.
Encampments cannot be befriended. Sorry, just not big enough.
But it's very dangerous, so we're going to use it very carefully. Or we're going to use it very carefully. Right?
It'll give you tooltips about the stupidest shit, but it won't give you tooltips about what to do about this guy when he's not. I guess let me inside a raid so that he stops bothering me, I guess.
So it is a pretty serious spread here. We're experimenting with a little. I think this one was imperfectly horizontal. To really see the importance of the caustic, imagine we illuminate the sphere uniformly with red light. More light is going to hit the sphere at higher impact parameters because the further out you go, the more area there is. So I've adjusted these sections so that they
There
all
it
the same
is. Okay,
area.
so
Then, using our graph of the scattering angle, you can see where
shut up.
this red light surface. Most of it ends up in the maximum scattering angle. To make this more obvious, we can add more light.
Smirky face.
Came out yesterday at 10. I've been playing almost 12 hours. It's crashed.
This is what gives us the rainbow.
Wait, no. It's already been 2 days I've been
It's
playing
not
this
enough to say
game.
that rainbow spreads white light into its colors, because all
It's
of the light
crashed,
closer to the middle
I want to
is
say
red,
20 times in
but
2
since the
days.
reflections all over the light as they come out, colors mix and produce white again. It's only the difference in maximum scattering angles and the caustics they produce gives us
Let's
the
just
rainbow.
finish that tech. I don't
So
think I
now
have
we know
high
what happens
command
along a
levels.
single
And
radius sphere. So what happens if we
Rolling on the
uniformly
floor
illuminate the
laughing, but
whole
another
sphere
sick
with
bro.
white light?
that's gonna suck.
I blacked out my window and cut a hole just big enough
Yeah, it
for
almost.
afternoon sunlight to cover the sphere.
Wow.
Civ Crash
You
is
can
the real
see
name of
there's
this
a
game.
I
circle
mean,
of white light
it is
on
a
the
2K game,
and then around
and
it, there's a
2K makes
rainbow colors.
the basketball game, FIFA, Madden, and they make the same game every year because Civ takes what 7, 10 fucking years to come out for each game. Did I think that they would have taken time? Yeah, I actually did have that thought right before I bought it. That maybe because all the other games are shit from 2K and EA, that this game would be the one that they work on.
Come on.
But if it crashes, they have 3 days. I'll give them 3 more crashes and then I'll go to Rivals. But if it crashes on release day like this, that's going to be kind of crazy.
surface and the back surface.
I mean, I don't know how big the scene is for
Crash,
Civ
crash,
either.
crash.
Blue, green, yellow,
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it now. How much time has it been since the last one? It's only been 38 minutes. I swear it's been an hour.
So,
It's only been 38 minutes since the last crash. Let's see.
I saw Twitch stream
You've
of this
got to
game
see this
crash
color
in the
column.
stream, haha.
You've got to see this.
I believe it. Someone came to my stream and they're like, "Yeah, I'm having this one, brother."
Dogs bark
Like, no, I believe it.
as the caravan moves on.
And then it sucks to stream it too because you crash and then you lose. You have to restart all your viewers. You have to restart your stream. You have to restart everything and hope they find it again.
This really looks like a rainbow. Remember, this is just the light coming away from the sun.
$75.
When you see a rainbow, there are
No.
millions of rainbows.
No.
And each one is
I paid $140, $141, $150,
well,
rounding
you're
up.
trying to see a color that's big red.
And I got a leader,
The red comes from the rainbow.
some special tiles,
This
which I kind of like it, the black and gold.
$150. Rolling on the floor laughing.
This explains why rainbows form arch with a 42 degree.
I got black and gold tiles. I got a Native American leader.
Laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor,
And
laughing,
then
rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling
I
on
got
the
a
floor,
ton of
laughing,
crashes.
rolling on the floor,
That's what I paid
rolling
for.
on the floor, laughing.
Crashes, the Native American leader, and
They form
it was a little more. I have to go look at the DLCs. But 3 of the leaders are duplicated twice, so I don't know exactly. Yeah,
millions of droplets each.
probably not the best investment I've made.
Trust in game makers, bro.
With the droplets similar to those.
I was like, oh, it's Civ. I played Civ 6. It was amazing. I had so much fun on Civ 6. Civ 7 Civ 7 is just Civ 6, but better? Upgraded? No way. Take my money. And here I am. 2 days later. 20 crashes later.
Rolling on the floor, laughing.
And Marvel Rivals was great. I had so much. Marvel Rivals didn't crash once.
6 modded is better for this haha.
This also explains.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to do a surprise order. What the hell's going on?
Not. The higher the sun is, the
I
lower
think
the top of the
I would
rainbow.
probably
And when the sun
agree.
is
But Civ 6 also did have
rainbow.
almost a whole decade plus.
Rolling on the floor, laughing.
People in rainbows are
Wait, 76?
visible using sunglasses.
I had
As long
what?
as they are polarized. Light from the sun is unpolarized, which means the electric field to the light.
I have the time on standard, right?
The age comes to end,
But
haha.
it just so
What?
happens that the light in the
Rolling
rainbow
on the floor,
I thought I had.
rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the
So
floor,
very close
laughing,
to
rolling on
us.
the floor, laughing, smirking face.
At this angle, all light with its electric field oriented parallel to the plane of reflection is transmitted, so it passes out the back of the droplet. Therefore, the
Don't tell me there's no way I picked the wrong time by accident.
This means rainbow light is polarized along the direction of the rainbow.
After crashing 20 times, I'm pretty sure I didn't pick the wrong time by accident.
Down.
Hammer and spade as
Down.
the Inca enriched the land.
But I don't know. Bruh. And now I have to see if there's some way to check if I did the time right. I'm pretty sure I picked standard and not online or quick because
This is what created the white disc in my glass sphere experiment. In contrast,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rainbows
yeah.
above the top of the rainbow are not reflecting light to you off their back surfaces. Your eye is now outside the maximum deflection angle of all colors. But if you look up even further, sometimes you see a second fainter rainbow with its colors inverted. Double rainbow! So where does this come from? Well, it comes from an additional reflection inside the rainbows. Now, instead of reflecting once off the inside of the sphere, light reflects twice. These reflections also create colored caustics, though much fainter because light is lost.
It says standard rules. So the time should be. So why did it last 131 turns all the last times?
The smaller the angle light reflects back at, until it reaches a minimum of around 50 degrees forward.
That doesn't even make sense.
So between 42 and 50 degrees, it is dark because
It only
this
keeps the autosave from the
is known
latest
as
one.
Alexander's dark band. Now, there is photographic
Oh wait, no, game speed online. Oh my god.
Only kinds of rainbows that you could expect to see when looking in the
So I guess I didn't change it. Great.
Laughing.
Order rainbows have been detected.
Well, at least I can hope for another.
That is not what is going on here.
I'm gonna make a new game, and then it's gonna crash.
Trash game.
But this only occurs when the raindrops are all really small, just a millimeter in diameter. Now the light rays that pass just above and below the primary rainbow ray end up coming out at similar angles.
Eternal return game.
Why is it not?
Slightly
There it goes.
of a wavelength. And because of this, those light rays can interfere constructively and destructively.
Wait, no, that's not what I
Produce
want.
a series of light and dark bands inside the main rainbow. Different colors in these supernumerary rainbows overlap more than in the main rainbow. So they
Look at
produce
this.
strange colors like a combination of blue and red. Supernumeraries also offer a clue.
There used to be so much in between. Why is it showing this one? Wait, there's new. What? Oh. Oh, see, I almost messed up again.
Starting at $12.99.
Okay. Everything good? Everything good. It's crashed as soon as I've started the game before, so
These stones as a pathway
be
to
prepared if that happens.
come, cut Ooooowwweeeee, and assume the world's throne.
I'm just trying to practice builds, brother. I don't know why it has to be so different. And this loading time is kind of ridiculous. It's a little spoiled, but you think it'd be faster.
Little light rays, tiny little droplets become a ring source of
Where is
light.
the narrator?
These tiny droplets
Yeah, there's no narrator. They say one line and then they're gone. I don't even know if she said the line there. But they usually read the first line and then they stop talking.
No narrator.
Nope. They read one line and it's over.
No narrator.
Here, this is kind of a good start,
Trash.
but let's show you guys again.
$150 for this.
Let's show you guys again.
Floor laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor,
Of
laughing.
course, all the different colors of light, different wavelengths, so these bullseye patterns aren't completely overlapped. So when they're superimposed, what we see is
What the fuck is it?
of color. Now, this is just a pattern from a single droplet, but just like with the rainbow, you have
Oh my
millions or
God.
billions of these droplets. They all contribute to produce this same pattern with your shadow at the center. And it was just such a pattern that inspired the Nobel Prize-winning discovery. In September of 1894, a scientist named C.T.R. Wilson was visiting an observatory in the Scottish Hills.
All right, listen. You guys ready for the narrator? Let's see what they say. It's going to be one line.
The people lay
He
these
recalls
stones as
that
a
these
welcome to
glories
the
bring
heavens.
sight
Come, cut
No narrator. Ages changes the sieves and
story.
bad initial interface. Ha ha ha.
Of course, once he discovered the cloud chamber made the tracks of energetic particles visible, he abandoned the
Yeah, she doesn't read anything else. Just that first line.
also brings the color.
You're lucky if the civilization has a longer line.
Face red,
So
droopy eyes.
now I hope you know, my son, why rainbows are curved.
But yeah.
Why they exist at all. And even more than that, I hope you know why I find such enjoyment
Face
in
orange
learning about
frowning.
our world.
Face orange biting
Why
nails.
it works.
Face red, droopy eyes.
We're looking at rainbows have been this blatant challenge held up to us by nature. Can you figure this out? Satisfying to say? For when I started researching this video, I thought I already knew about rainbows. I mean, I learned all the colors of the rainbow in school and it's caused by light refracting and reflecting. But I realize now that I'd only really memorized things about rainbows and not really understood how they work. Learning should be about mastering a subject, not memorizing a list of facts. That's why we asked Brilliant to sponsor this video. Brilliant helps you become smarter every day with quick interactive lessons on everything from science to data analysis, programming, AI, you name it. And what makes Brilliant so effective is that you learn by doing.
Oh, I forgot to turn the special tiles off.
Solve problems so you build intuition and real understanding. And since all of their lessons are bite-sized, you can be learning and building skills whenever you have space. Take their freshly completed course on scientific thinking. If you like learning about the physics of rainbows, you'll love diving into these lessons and get hands-on with everything from gears and structures to balancing forces and beyond. You'll not only get a better grasp on how the physical world works, you'll also learn to think like scientists so you can apply your skills to any problem.
See
Now,
all
I
these
truly
7 pages
believe
don't
that
have
learning a
money.
little bit every
Many
day
negative
is our
comments
best
about this game now.
brilliant.
Thousand
That is
negative comments.
all you need are a few minutes of training before you know it. You've got each day
No.
of its
1,000
smart.
good
So to try
comments.
everything Brilliant has to offer,
Not too bad, so it's about even. But I bet those 3,000 good comments are people being optimistic. They still have problems, I bet.
I have win. Smirking
The
face.
sandwich is that first bite.
No.
I really like the marinated chicken breast, the multi-grain brioche bun, and that honey.
Yeah, Cheryl Lafayette. Get out of here. No one likes you.
One of these people.
Get out of here. Yeah. Bye. Thank you.
Rolling on the
I don't
floor
care.
laughing.
Most of us tie our shoelaces wrong. There are two ways to tie a knot in your shoelaces. In one, you go counterclockwise around the loop, and in the other, you go clockwise. These two methods look almost identical, but one of these knots is far superior to the other. It doesn't loosen or come untied.
Shut up. Why are you bothering me already? I don't even know where you are. Oh, there's no way you're so close. Okay. I think I want to take you out of the game early.
So far, we have discovered the first 352,152,252 knots. Each one has its own particular properties and characteristics. I think it's fascinating that there's something like a periodic table for knots out there. But it's not pure math. Knot theory has turned out to be remarkably useful. It is core to the structure of proteins and DNA. It's leading to new materials that can be stronger than Kevlar. It's even used to develop medicines that save millions of lives. All of this just for trying to understand the humble knot. So what is a knot? Well, in our everyday lives, we see knots like this or this. But if you were trying to rigorously study knots, you want to be able to pull them apart so you can really see what's going on. The problem is, knots like this are held together only by
Yeah. The other version's cooler.
They fall apart. So in order
Put your shirt on, weirdo. And then you again.
Well, you can tease the knot apart to study it. But it will
Too bad they didn't have
never
hairline treatment in your day,
So in
pal.
knot theory, all knots exist on closed loops. This means the simplest knot you can have is just a circle like this. Now, admittedly, this is not much of a knot, which is why it is called an unknot. Here is another knot. Again, it's made of a single piece of rope that forms a closed loop. Here is another. Two knots are only different if you can't make one into the other without breaking the loop. This is the simplest knot after the unknot. It is called the trefoil. And you can see that there's no way for me to turn this back into a circle unless I actually break it open, take out the knot, and then close it up again. Now I have two unknots. It is surprisingly hard to tell two knots apart by eye. Here is a simple mystery knot. Is it an unknot, a trefoil, or neither? I'll give you a second to figure it out. It is, in fact, trefoil, which you can see if I just untwist this and rearrange the knot a little bit. And our first complicated knot, well, it is actually just the unknot. I'm going to try to disentangle it so you can see that. There you go. It was just single loop. In fact, these are all unknowns. And this is where the problem begins. You can't just randomly tangle some rope and connect the ends. To make a new mathematical knot, you need to prove it's not just a tangled up version of another knot. So how do you tell two knots apart? This one question, also known as the knot equivalence problem, is so famously difficult that it's propelled the entire field of knot theory for over 150 years. Alan Turing even wrote in his final publication, "No systematic method is yet known by which one can tell whether two knots are the same. A decision problem which might well be unsolvable is the one concerning knots. The results in this article set certain bounds to what we can hope to achieve purely by reasoning." Previously, the most famous knot problem in history was the Gordian knot. It was said that whoever untangled this massive knotted rope was destined to rule all of Asia. Legend goes, Alexander the Great simply came along and sliced right through. That would not be a valid solution in knot theory.
Damn, you got fucked up.
And there are other famous knots of history.
You're right there, bro. I don't think you are.
It was used in medieval Celtic designs, Chinese knotwork, and Hinduism and Buddhism. In ancient civilization, knots were tied on cords called quipu to track everything from taxes to calendars. You can even find a knot in the coat of arms for the House of Borromeo, an Italian noble family that has existed since the 1300s. Borromean rings are technically a link, which is just a knot with multiple loops of rope. The most basic link is the unlink, two loops which aren't actually connected, much like the unknot. After that is the huff link, then later the Borromean rings and more. But the knot equivalence problem was only encountered centuries later. In January of 1867, Scottish physicist Peter Guthrie Tait showed off his homemade smoke machine to renowned scientist William Thomson, later Lord Kelvin. Tait had read a paper that said a vortex ring should be eternally stable in ideal fluid. So, intrigued, he set up 2 wooden boxes containing a kind of toxic mixture of ammonia, sulfuric acid, and salt. When he tapped a towel stretched across the back of each box, chemical smoke popped out of a circular cutout.
Yeah, everybody, huh?
Kelvin, watching, was transfixed by the process. He had been pondering the composition of atoms, a fundamental question of the time. Suddenly he saw an answer. He declared that atoms must be made out of vortex rings of ether and invisible everywhere medium. Different knots of vortex rings would make different elements. The shape of the hot flake explained the double spectral lines of sodium. The simple unknot ring was hydrogen. Tate was skeptical, but as Kelvin's vortex model of the atom became a leading theory, Tate began investigating knots in earnest, in his mind creating a periodic table of the elements with every knot he found. The crossing number is an easy way to categorize knots. Just take the simplest form of a knot, one with no extra twists or tangles, and count up all its crossings. By hand, Tate discovered a 3-crossing knot, the trefoil, then a 4-crossing knot, the figure 8, then 2 5-crossing knots, 3 6-crossing knots, and 7 7-crossing knots. One quick note, knots are additive. You can stick multiple knots together to make a new knot, like combining these 2 trefoils into a 6-crossing knot. This is called a composite knot. But some knots aren't decomposable into simpler knots. These are known as prime knots. Since all composite knots are just built from primes, people mainly focus on tabulating prime knots. Unfortunately for Tate, warning signs were on the horizon for Lord Kelvin's vortex theory of the atom. Mendeleyev's first periodic table had been published in 1869. The Michelson-Morley experiment sowed seeds of doubt about an ether in 1887. And the most damning result was J.J. Thomson's discovery of the electron in 1897. So there were particles smaller than the atom which were inside atoms. But Tate was already in too deep with knots to stop. He'd even roped in his academic rival and close friend James Clerk Maxwell's equations. Thanks to Tate's influence, Maxwell became a knot enthusiast for the rest of his life. His last poem, written shortly before his death from stomach cancer, even begins, "My soul's an amphipiral knot on a liquid vortex rock." Assisted in part by hundreds of letters with Maxwell, Tate published his list of knots up to 7 crossings in 1877, the first math paper with the word knots in its title. Then Tate paused his search for 7 years. In a speech, he stated, "The requisite labor increases with extreme rapidity as the number of crossings is increased. Someone with the requisite leisure should try to extend this list, if possible, up to 11. 2 mathematicians took him up on his call for help, Thomas Kirkman and Charles Little. Together, the 3 of them were able to find all 21 8-crossing knots, all 49 9-crossing knots, and all 166 10-crossing knots by 1899, just 2 years before Tate's death. This was all done painstakingly by hand. Tate admits in his paper, he cannot be absolutely certain that all those groups are essentially different one from another. In the process of tabulating knots, he had uncovered the central problem of how to possibly tell them apart. Somewhat miraculously, Tate, Kirkman, and Little had done a near perfect job with their knot tables. Their list stood for 75 years without change, until a single correction in 1973, but more on that later. Summary is something a little more digestible. For decades after Tate's death, little progress was made on the knot equivalence problem. But in 1927, German mathematician Kurt Reidemeister proved a radical theorem. You only need three types of moves to transform any two identical knots into each other: the twist, the poke, and the moves. It's true. This may have been where Turing was coming from when he called the mathematician Wolfgang Haken created a computer algorithm that solved the knot equivalence problem definitively for the specific case of knots. In 2001, building on Haken's work, mathematicians found a way to distinguish between any knot and the unknot by simply setting an upper bound on the number of Reidemeister moves needed to connect them. If you check all sequences of Reidemeister moves up to that number, you can prove if the knot is the unknot or not.
There is one tree.
There's just one problem. That upper bound was 2 to the 100 billion n moves. As of today, the upper bound has improved dramatically to just 236 n to the power of 11. Now, while smaller than before, checking all possible sequences of Reidemeister moves up to this number is still unfathomable. For a single crossing knot, this is larger than the number of stars in the observable universe. In 2011, mathematicians found an upper bound on the number of Reidemeister moves needed to connect any two knots or links, solving the entire knot equivalence problem. This is the upper bound. First, raise 2 to the second power, then raise that to power 2 again. This operation is called tetration, and it grows fast. Now keep doing it until you have raised 2 to itself 10 to the million n times. Cap it off with n again. This is easily the largest number we have ever shown in a video. But even just to have a solution is remarkable, given that Turing thought the problem was potentially undecidable only 60 years earlier. If it's this hard to tell two knots apart, how have we managed to tabulate 350 million different knots? Well, there are some properties of a knot that never change, no matter how much you twist or tangle it up. These are called invariants, and these invariants will be different for some knots compared to other ones. So you can use them as hallmarks of a particular knot. They're not perfectly discriminating. I mean, some knots will share invariants, but if two knots have different invariants, then you know for sure that they are different. Crossing number is itself an invariant. Two knots can't be identical if they have different crossing numbers. But the crossing number is surprisingly difficult to calculate. You can put extra crossings into any knot, like just throw in a bunch of twists. Different variations of the same knot are known as different projections of that knot. Crossing number measures the least number of crossings a knot can have, but it only works for the simplest projection of a knot, also known as its reduced form. But it's difficult to ensure that a knot is fully reduced. Instead, we can use another invariant, one that's true right away for all projections of a knot. So it'll get the same value both for a messy trefoil and for a reduced trefoil. This first invariant is tricolorability, or whether a knot can be colored in with 3 colors. Take a diagram of a knot and color in each individual segment. These are just separated by undercrossings, where you would lift your pen off the page. Tricolorability only has 2 rules. First, you must use at least 2 colors, because you can color any knot in with 1 color. And second, at crossings, the 3 intersecting strands must either be all the same color or all different colors. Basically, no 2-colored crossings. There are just 2 categories of this invariant. Either a knot is tricolorable or it's not. Identical knots must match. So if one knot is tricolorable and the other one isn't, then you know they're different knots. It's hard to believe that tricolorability is constant across any possible projection of the same knot. But since you only need Reidemeister moves to move between projections, we just need to prove that it isn't affected by Reidemeister moves. The twist is easy. Everything's 1 color already, and it stays that way. With the poke, the intersection of 2 colors means that the loop formed must become the 3rd color. So we have 3 colors at every intersection. With the slide, you never have to break tricolorability because you start with 3 colors at 3 intersections and then switch one intersection to just 1 color. So any knot will maintain its tricolorability no matter what Reidemeister moves you do. This is a good time to note that we never actually proved the trefoil and the unknot were two different knots, but we can do it now with tricolorability. The unknot is not tricolorable, since you can't use at least two colors to color it in, and the trefoil is easily tricolorable. Just color in each of the three segments a different color. The crossings all have three colors, so it is tricolorable. Now we know every possible projection of the trefoil is tricolorable. These two knots must be different knots. This invariant isn't very specific. It only gives you two categories across all knots. In fact, the next knot after the trefoil, the figure 8 knot, isn't tricolorable. There's always a crossing with two colors. So how do we prove that this is different from the unknot, which also isn't tricolorable? Tricolorability expands into a much more powerful invariant called p-colorability, where p can be any prime number besides 2. Instead of using colors, we'll number each strand with integers between 0 and p minus 1. P-colorability has two rules. First, you must use at least two different numbers. Second, at crossings, the two bottom strands added together and divided by p must give the same remainder as twice the top strand divided by p. Tricolorability was just a simple version of this. If we go from 3 to 5 colorability for the figure 8 knot, we can number the strands 0, 1, then this strand must give a remainder of 0, so 4, and this strand must give a remainder of 2, so 3. This knot is 5 colorable, so it's not the unknot. Colorability is a huge tool. The unknot is completely uncolorable, so any knot with any colorability can't be the unknot. P-colorability still doesn't cover everything. Some of the most powerful invariants right now, the ones that can distinguish between the most unique knots, are polynomials. The Alexander polynomial was the first one discovered back in 1923, before even Reidemeister moves. Like p-colorability, it relies on only two rules. The first is that the Alexander polynomial of the unknot is equal to 1. The second is that you can zoom in on any single crossing of a knot and vary it in 3 possible positions: forward, backward, and separate. The Alexander polynomial gives a relationship between the 3 resulting knots. Let's do an example. What's the Alexander polynomial for the unlinked? Well, if we zoom into this separate crossing and then vary it, we see that the other 2 knots formed are both the unknown. So we can plug in 1 for both of them, and we get that the Alexander polynomial for the unlinked must be 0. Then we can do the same for the hot link, taking this crossing as the forward crossing, then seeing that the backward crossing gives us the unlinked. The separate crossing is the unknot, so the Alexander polynomial for the hot link is minus t to the half plus t to the minus a half. Now we can do the trefoil. When we vary this crossing, we get that the backward crossing gives us the unknot, and the separate crossing gives the hot link. So the Alexander polynomial is t minus 1 plus t to the negative 1. The polynomial is designed so that we get separate results for as many knots and links as we can. And this is recursive. We can calculate the polynomial forever for bigger and bigger knots. The Alexander polynomial stood unchanged for over 60 years as the knot invariant choice. But in 1984, it was upended by an unlikely discovery. Mathematician Von Jones had been working on a type of algebra for statistical mechanics, a concept in physics, when he realized his work resembled a series of equations in knot theory. He traveled to New York to consult knot theorist Joan Berman at Columbia University, who helped refine his equations into a knot invariant. They met again a week later and tested it against knot diagrams from Berman's filing cabinet, quickly realizing Jones had discovered a brand new polynomial invariant. He scribbled down all their work in a 15-page letter. The Jones polynomial is like the Alexander, but with the more specific equation for the second rule that lets it distinguish many more knots. For this discovery, Jones won the Fields Medal in 1990. The first new polynomial invariant kicked up a fervor in knot theory. Just months after Jones' result, 6 mathematicians each independently found an improved version of his polynomial with 2 variables instead of 1. The editors of the American Math Society published all their papers together, naming it the Homme-Fly polynomial. 2 Polish mathematicians missed the news and discovered it again a couple months later, upon which it became the Homme-Flight polynomial. None of these invariants works alone. Just like if you were searching for a person, you'd start by checking a first name, then a last name, then a birthday, and so on to eventually narrow your search down to just one person. Similarly, knots have dozens of invariants, which, when taken together, uniquely identify them. With invariants to prove if knots are different and Breidenmeister rules to prove if knots are the same, you can attack from 2 angles to meet the gargantuan task of distinguishing every single knot. But this method isn't perfect. These 2 knots were listed next to each other in Tate's knot tables for over 75 years. They were the same by all invariant accounts. So Tate and Little likely tried Breidenmeister proofs to see if they could transform one into the other, and once they failed, they listed them as 2 separate knots. Kenneth Perko, a lawyer who had studied knot theory, spotted them in 1973 while looking through Little's table of 10 crossing knots. Suspicious of their similarities, he pulled out a yellow legal pad to sketch some Breidenmeister moves. He quickly found a way to connect the 2 knots. These 2 projections, now known as the Perko pair, are the same knot. So the knot tables of Tate, Kirkman, and Little were issued their single correction, and instead of 166 10-crossing knots, there are 165. It had taken decades of work to tabulate all 249 prime knots up to 10 crossings. No one dared tackle the 11 crossings until John Conway. He found all 552, and claimed he did it in a single afternoon. This was the last tabulation by hand. In the 80s, Dowker and Thistlethwaite built a computer algorithm to count all 12 and 13 crossing knots. Thistlethwaite later joined forces with Austin Weeks to tabulate all 14, 15, and 16 crossing knots in a paper titled The First 1,701,936 Knots. The method they used is still the one used today, employing a computer to list all possible knots and then using invariants to weed out duplicates. They split into 2 teams and cross-checked their results, aligning perfectly on all but 4 knots on their first try. In 2020, mathematician Ben Burton single-handedly tabulated all 17, 18, and 19 crossing knots, bringing the total number of known prime knots to 352,152,252. His project was so computationally intensive, several hundred computers had to run for months before obtaining the final number. The hardest part of knot tabulation is counting up every knot and then carefully eliminating duplicates. But if you just want to generate a huge number of distinct knots, you can make alternating knots, knots with crossings that alternate over-under. This computation is much easier, though it leaves out most knots. Back in 2007, this method was used to find alternating knots up to an absurd 24 crossings. So in total, we know of 159,965,097,353 knots. Of course, we're missing a lot in between. Knot theory was always just pure math. All the algorithms, invariants, and tabulations were knowledge for the sake of knowledge. But in 1989, chemist Jean-Pierre Sauvage tied molecules around copper ions to form the first ever synthetic knotted molecule. This trefoil knot restricted the atoms from unfurling, trapping them in higher energy states to give the molecule new properties. Any type of knot tied in a molecule will change its properties. And we know of over 159 billion knots. So if you can tie a molecule into each of those knots, that's 159 billion new unique materials created from a single molecule. Though after the trefoil, chemists have only managed to tie 5 other molecular knots to date. It's a difficult task since they can't just nudge individual ions into place. Molecules must be built to self-assemble these knots. Knot theory helps identify which knots match available molecular templates. Symmetric knots are easier for one, and how to arrange those to assemble the knot. The most complex knot yet created is the 819 knot, with 192 atoms tied around a central chloride ion. This molecule holds the Guinness World Record for tightest knot in the world, defined as the most crossings per unit length. In this case, 8 crossings in 20 nanometers. Since it's knotted around a chloride ion, once the ion is removed, this molecule is one of the strongest chloride binders in existence. The field is still new for specific applications. Chemists are just focused on creating molecular knots before thinking about materials development. But they hope to eventually build things like durable fabrics stronger than Kevlar.
When it comes to my space, I gotta keep the expression tight, just like Mama taught me. So I'm always spraying for loose fabric spray, phytolayers.
Smells like home. Smells like flowers to me, man. Thank you, Zeke.
Justin, that moisture locked in. Venus moisture guide.
The knot theory is also critical to biological processes that have saved millions of lives. Bacterial DNA consists of a single loop of the double helix molecule. This shape means that it always forms a knotted link when it replicates. The bacteria can't separate into 2 cells with their DNA tangled up like this. So they have an enzyme called type 2 topoisomerase which snips and reconnects the DNA. This turns their linked DNA back into an unlinked, so they can replicate cleanly. If you inhibit type 2 topoisomerase, the bacteria can't replicate properly, and in fact, they die. This is how some of the most common antibiotics in the world, called quinolones, operate. Human DNA, while not circular, is long enough to also get into tangles. Each cell in your body contains 2 meters of DNA, the equivalent of stuffing 200 kilometers of fishing line into a basketball. When this mess inevitably tangles, human type 2 topoisomerases come to make crossing changes. The human version of the enzyme is different enough from the bacterial version that it's unaffected by antibiotics. But human topoisomerases are sometimes intentionally inhibited. This stops replication and kills cells, predominantly the rapidly dividing cancer cells. So it's one of the most common forms of chemotherapy. Biologists needed knot theory to first understand the mechanism of type 2 topoisomerase. Once they observed it was decreasing the crossing number of knots in DNA 2 at a time, they realized it had to be cutting and rejoining entire double strands of DNA. And there are many other obscure topoisomerases that act on DNA. Knot theory is used to analyze the knots they tie or untie, how they operate as a result. It's not just DNA that knots. 1% of all proteins have various knots in their fundamental structure. If they get misknotted, they malfunction. So being able to accurately tell knots apart helps understand these proteins' mechanisms, as well as how to potentially repair or utilize them. When it comes to your shoelaces, both of the common ways to tie the knot are composed of 2 trefoils on top of each other. I'm going to tie some rope around my leg to make this easier to see. When you go counterclockwise around the loop, well, then you form 2 identical trefoils on top of each other. This is also known as a granny knot. But when you go clockwise around the loop, then you get mirror-imaged trefoils on top of each other. This is also known as a square knot. It doesn't loosen as easily. So we should all be tying our shoelaces like this, clockwise around the loop. Most of us aren't. I mean, I'm not, usually. I normally do it like this. A simple overhand knot is just the trefoil. The bowline knot, the most common knot for boating or just holding things together, is the 6-2 knot. And any knot tied without using the ends, also known as in the bight, that is just an unknot. So a slip knot is an example of an unknot. In 2007, researchers Dorian Raymer and Douglas Smith conducted 3,415 trials of spinning spring in boxes to study how knots form in the real world. They ended up creating 120 different types of knots, some as complicated as 11 crossings. They found that Longer agitation time led to a higher chance of knotting. Longer string did as well, except this probability decreased once the string was put in a smaller box, which restrained its motion. So if you want to keep something like headphones from knotting in your pocket where you can't adjust string length or agitation time, then your best bet is to confine them to as small a space as possible. Rayburn Smith also proposed a model for real-world knot formation. A series of loops are first formed when a string is placed into a container. Then when it's agitated, a free end of the string gets woven up and down through the loops, braiding itself into them to form knots. Let's see. A knot. So coiling out your wires is actually setting yourself up for failure, because you're forming a bunch of loops for a loose end to braid perfectly into a knot. So instead, what you want to do is restrict its movement, whether by using a small box or increasing string stiffness. DNA increases its stiffness by supercoiling. You can do the same with your wires. I just double it up like this, and then I twist from the middle. This is going to stiffen the length of wire. Now, this is naturally going to want to sort of coil in on itself, and it's going to look like a big tangled mess. But all you have to do is take the opposite end of the headphone and pull apart, and there's no tangles, no knots. Their study won an Ig Nobel Prize. It has been cited in studies of knots in surgical catheters, and even linked to an Apple patent for stiffer earbud wires. Knot theory began as a failed theory of everything. For the next century, it was a standalone field of math, propelled by nothing more than intellectual curiosity. But in recent years, it's reclaimed its original potential. Today, knot theory is a theory of everything from headphone tangles to material science to chemotherapy. In 1889, Kelvin gave a presidential address to the British Institution of Electrical Engineers about his failed atomic theory of knots. I am afraid I must end by saying that the difficulties are so great in the way of forming anything like a comprehensive theory that we cannot even imagine a finger post pointing to a way that leads us towards the explanation. But this time next year, this time 10 years, this time 100 years, I cannot doubt that these things, which now seem to us so mysterious, will be no mysteries at all. That the scales will fall from our eyes, that we shall learn to look on things in a different way. And that which is now a difficulty will be the only common sense and intelligible way of looking at the subject. Go back and ready. Step it up. Hands off the rim for the running back.
Jordan reinvented the square for a smoother tear. Oh, yeah. Sharpen Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Knot theory is a perfect example of how knowledge in one area can become a tool to understanding countless others. From learning how to tell a trefoil apart from an unknot, knot theorists have built all the way up to discovering brand new proteins. If you want a quick and easy way to build out your own mental toolkit, you should absolutely check out this video sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is the best way to learn about almost any concept in math, data science, programming, and more. They even have a computational biology course where you can apply concepts from this video to folding protein chains. With Brilliant, you just set your goal and they'll design a perfect learning path to help you reach it, equipping you with professional tools along the way. Want to harness the tools of a data scientist? Brilliant's newest course, Predicting with Probability, is the best place to get there. The course has everything you need and nothing you don't to start building your data science skills. There is no coding required. You'll learn easily to slice and dice massive data sets, compare distributions, and master fundamental concepts like phase theory, all while working with real air traffic data. You'll learn to answer questions like, which airlines have the least delays due to weather? How much more unruly passengers have gotten since the pandemic? Data skills are absolutely necessary to navigate our world today, and Brilliant is the best place to get them. Beyond their data courses, Brilliant also has a massive content library, all of it highly visual, interactive, and incredibly easy to understand. It's more than just a learning platform. It's your path to understanding the world of math, data, and computer science. By learning on Brilliant, you'll always be one step ahead as technology and the modern world advances every day. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/Veritasium. I will put that link down in the description. First 200 of you to sign up will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So I want to thank Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and I want to thank you for watching. When people think about robots, they usually imagine something like a Boston Dynamics robot, metallic and humanoid. But the robots we'll see in the future might not look like that at all. I mean, if humans are interacting with something on a daily basis, it's probably best not to make it sharp, delicate, and heavy. Instead, advanced robots might be made safer if they're soft, flexible, and all kinds of shapes and sizes. So instead of Sunny from iRobot, something like Baymax from Big Hero 6 might be closer to what's in our future. This is a compilation video of 5 of my videos on the surprisingly different ways robots can look, why we build them that way. This is my first time trying out a series, and honestly, it's been a busy time for the Veritasium team. We're working on some exciting things in the background, but in the meantime, we wanted to put this together for all of them. And I also caught up with Dr. Elliot Hawks, the scientist behind 2 of these robots, to get an update on how they're progressing and when we can expect to see them in our lives. Are there more developments with the jumping robots?
We have a whole other project jumping into WP sprints, so I won't give away our secrets yet, but I offer that one too. That's fun.
So you have another jumping robot which has a totally novel design, and you think it's going to be better than the one that you had before.
Correct.
And I just want to shout out our longtime sponsor, Brilliant. They've supported the channel since 2021, and it's great to get to talk about something that I actually use myself. I've had Brilliant on my phone for years, and it just allows me to learn something new every day instead of, say, doom scrolling. You should make valuable use of your time. So I'll tell you more about Brilliant later in the video.
I keep a global Deloitte AI, and I ask our AI leaders, how is Gen AI changing their work? Tune in to our new video series, listen into their answers.
Non-humanoid robots aren't just safer for us to interact with. One of their biggest advantages over traditional robots is that they don't just do things humans already do but better. Instead, they're specialized to master entirely new abilities, often ones that no human can tackle. This is a robot that can grow to hundreds of times its size, and it can't be stopped by adhesives or spikes. Although it looks kind of simple and cheap, it has dozens of potential applications, including one day maybe saving your life. These robots can be made out of almost any material. They all follow the same basic principle. Powered by compressed air, they grow from the tip. And this allows the robot to pass through tight spaces and also over sticky surfaces.
Something like a car expected. Gets stuck in the wheels. Now, if I do the same thing with the bun robot, the robot is able to extend.
It can navigate this curvy and twisted passageway effortlessly, which suggests some of the applications it's well suited for. Now, you might think spikes would be the downfall of an inflatable robot, but even if it's punctured, as long as you have sufficient air pressure, the robot keeps going.
And you might be able to hear it. It's actually leaking now, so I have to turn up the pressure. This by itself is not yet a robot, but once we had steering, a camera, some sensors, and maybe some intelligence as to where we're directing it, then we can say it's a robot. So this is sort of the backbone of a robot. And this is what allows us to build our type of robots.
So where did the idea for this device come from?
I had a vine in my office. It was on a shelf, and it was kind of out of the sunlight. And over the course of like a year or so, it slowly grew out this tendril out and around the edge of the shelf and towards the sunlight. That's a pretty cool thing it just did, right? So, I mean, was there a way you could do that robotically?
The solution is really elegant in its simplicity. Just take some airtight tubing and fold it in on itself. It's kind of like a water wiggly, those toys that are really hard to hold. When you inflate it with compressed air, it starts growing out from the tip. And if you want the tube to always bend at a certain spot, you can just tape the tubing on the outside to shorten one of the sides. For example, you could tape it into a helical shape to create a deployable antenna. What about getting it to retract?
Yeah, that's a challenging problem. When you're in a constrained environment, all you really have to do is pull on, we call it the tail, so the material that is for the body. You pull on it, and it basically ungrows. It just goes back inside itself. Now, if you're in a big open area like this, and you try pulling on that, instead of inverting, so retracting, it tends to kind of coil up and make a ugly shape.
The engineers have come up with ways to retract the tube to prevent it from buckling using internal rollers. But the tube doesn't have to be the same diameter the whole way along. Here, there's actually a much wider section. Think of it like a pillow that's packed into the end of the robot.
Cross-legged on the table. This sounds super sketchy.
So it grows underneath the table, just as usual, and then as the pillow part starts inflating, what? It can actually lift me up.
So my balance is not great, as we can see. Stand on it.
What's amazing is that this doesn't require much pressure above atmosphere. Just a tenth of an atmosphere applied over a large area, like a square meter, can lift something as heavy as 1,000 kilograms, all the while remaining soft. That's the paradoxical thing about pressure. You can get a large overall force with low pressure as long as the area is large enough. What sort of area is that? That's there.
It's 600 square. Right. So with 1 psi, 600 pounds.
Yeah.
2 psi, 1,200 pounds.
And the whole time it feels really soft.
Yeah, there's a couple psi, right?
It's important that the device is still soft so it doesn't hurt anyone.
So we can design these things to have cross section that changes along its length. So it could be a very small body that could grow into, for example, a flat building and potentially lift a large object off someone who's trapped or maybe in a car crash. Apply huge forces with very soft, lightweight cheap material.
These robots can also be deployed in search and rescue operations by attaching sensors like a camera onto the front.
These robots are actually really hard to stop, so you can take them, throw them into a clutter, into a class building or something like that, and they will continue to go somewhere. An alternative is cheap, and they're basically free. You could grow 100 of them, say, into a class building with some sensing on them, and maybe only one of them finds somebody, but that's a huge success if it does.
But how do you keep a camera connected to the front of the robot when it grows out from the tip? Well, one way is to use an end cap, which allows that camera just to stay on the front, pushed from behind by the robot, but there are other mechanisms of attachment. The tiny wireless camera is mounted on an external frame, but this frame interlocks with an internal frame, which is actually inside the pressurized part of the robot body. It's similar to how a roller coaster's wheels go around the track. So this prevents the camera from falling off as the robot grows. What's really interesting is how the Vine robot can be actively steered. They attach artificial muscles to the robot.
I want you to know, be my last guy. Come on, you. Don't leave me.
you know about Medicare Part C plans, also called Medicare Advantage? If you're losing benefits for any reason or new to Medicare, you could be eligible to enroll in a plan today. Call 800-296-7081. Are you confused about what a Medicare Part C plan covers and what benefits you can get in your zip code? Different Part C plans are available in different parts of the country. Do you have the coverage you need? Enrollment in a Medicare Part C plan is not automatic. 2025 Medicare Advantage plans are available, so call for your free Medicare benefits checkup. Call 800-296-7081 to speak with a licensed insurance agent. Get your questions about your Medicare coverage answered and see what additional benefits are available to you in your zip code. Different Part C plans are available in different parts of the country. Do you have the coverage? A Medicare Part C plan could help you save money and include additional benefits. Enrollment in a Medicare Part C plan is not automatic, so call now to find out if you are eligible. You could be eligible for plans with additional benefits or cost savings you may not be receiving now, or that may have previously not been available to you. Medicare Advantage plans can change every year, so call 800-296-7081 now. With just one call, you can get your questions answered, find out if you are eligible for a special enrollment period, and see what benefits are available to you in your zip code. Remember, enrollment in the Medicare Part C plan is not automatic, so call now for your free 2025 Medicare benefits checkup. The call and Medicare benefits checkup are absolutely free and there's no obligation. Make sure you have the coverage you need. Call 800-296-7081. That's 800-296-7081.
So the way this muscle works is that if you inflate it, it expands sideways, which leads to it contracting in length. We don't actually use these much anymore because although it's soft, it's still somewhat stiff. So what we use instead are simply tubes of this ripstop nylon fabric with the grain oriented at 45 degrees. So in this sense, we just have one single layer of airtight fabric. This is the main robot body here. It has three pneumatic muscles connected to it. Now these three muscles are each connected to their own air supply connected to regulators over here. As the robot extends from the tip, we can steer it by shortening and lengthening the side. So you know just the way your hand works is if I shorten this tendon in my arm, my hand will move this way. Or if I shorten the one on this side, it'll move the other way. So our Vine robot, we have these muscles along the side, so as they inflate, they'll turn it one way, and if I inflate the one on the other side, it'll turn the other way. So the Vine robot can fit through tight spaces. It doesn't typically get stuck on anything. It isn't bothered by sharp objects. And once you attach that camera on the front, it's ideal for things like archaeology. The robot was actually taken to Peru to investigate some very narrow shafts.
So we were looking at this archaeological site that was built somewhere between 1500 and 500 BC in the Andes Mountains of Peru, and it was an ancient temple that had all these underground spaces. And part of what the archaeologists were doing was trying to understand what the spaces were for and what the people who built them were trying to do with them. And then there were these small ducts or tunnels that were offshoots of these rooms, and they wanted to know where these ducts went. But they were too small for a person to go in, so we were able to explore three of the tunnels that couldn't have been seen through other means, which was super exciting.
There's an application where I feel this solution is just so obvious, I wonder why it didn't exist before.
Intubation is literally the process of putting a tube into a patient. The purpose is to reassure the patient when the patient isn't breathing. So traditionally, highly trained medical professionals take over and scope from above the patient. Once they see the trachea, start to pass your tube down inside. Almost there. See the light. So if you can see right now, I just got it into the trachea.
Okay.
Right there. It took me a couple minutes, and I was really kind of wrenching on this patient here, because there's the
somebody who's not breathing every second. But by using a miniature version of this spine robot, researchers are hoping to make innovation faster and safer. You know, somebody like me with no training could pretty simply insert this device, aim towards the nose, and just like that, you can see we've already intubated. All it took was a little bit of pressurization. Just like that. It almost looks like a sort of a party favor. Yeah, right? It's like reminds me of a lot of the inflatable, kind of like Play-Doh structure. Hard lock. How did the motor go down the right tube?
Yeah, so that's one of the kind of cool things about soft robotics is the robot is quite compliant, and we see that in a lot of these demos. You know, they can squish, they can bend. So how we design it is that the main robot goes down into the esophagus. We have this side branch that heads towards the trachea, and it's quite flexible, and so it basically finds the opening. This really neat example of kind of a passive intelligence, mechanical intelligence, we could call it, where it can find its path, even if we don't know exactly the shape beforehand.
Have you tried this on a real person yet?
Not on a real person. We've actually tried this in a cadaver lab, and we've shown that we moved from this nice idealized version to an actual in vivo situation and successfully into a patient.
There's another application, which is burrowing into sand or soil. When you blow compressed air into something like sand, it's fluidized. It becomes like a liquid. And that can allow the vine robot to grow into granular materials like sand.
If you ever been to the beach and you try to swim or umbrella fall into the ground, it's fairly brittle.
But a quick that throw down into the sand, no fluidization. Yeah, it feels like it sort of gets wedged in there.
Now it's not really.
Oh, yeah. You can feel it immediately. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
So what we've done here is essentially we get a little bit of air out the front of the robot, and that loosens up the sand enough to reduce the force of the sand so that the robot, just by tip extension, can make it through.
This makes vine robots an attractive option for NASA when they look for ways to study the surfaces of other planets. Recently on Mars, they tried to have a burrowing robot, but it got stuck. Could you do it better, basically, with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Mars Insight mission, they have this heat flow. The idea there was to be able to sort of camera over and then place a sensor the temperature of Mars. However, the problem they ran into there is that it turned out the material that they put it in was more cohesive than they expected. Inside the robot, something was wind up and pounded down, wind up and pounded down. But it turned out there wasn't enough friction between the probe and the sand. So what really happened was it would wind up, pound down, wind up, pound down, wind up, pound down. So it would never actually go anywhere. The advantage of something like this, like tip extension, is you have your base, start at the surface, you just keep extending your way down. You're not necessarily relying on the interaction with what is surrounding it to make it work.
What amazes me about vine robots is how a plant inspired this simple, elegant design. It's so easy, in fact, that you could build one yourself.